Dear viewers, Mysore, the city of palaces. Anybody who goes to Mysore cannot miss the palaces. But it was a fact that kings ruled from the palaces that you see in Mysore. There was a royal family. How much do we know about the royal family of Mysore, the Vodiyas? To speak about them and the history of Mysore, I have with me today Vikram Sampath, the author of the book Splendors of Royal Mysore, the untold story of the Vodiyas. Warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deepak.
You're not as young as you look, right? Most of the people are speaking about this young man who has written a big book.
Well, I'm not a woman, so I can reveal my age. I'm 28, which is young enough, I guess.
Okay, but the story of you having got inspiration after watching Sword of Tipu Sultan.
Yes.
And that was when you were 12 years of age.
Yes. I usually put this as the Mysore bug, which bit me first time when I was 11 or 12.
Okay.
And there was a very popular serial, The Sword of Tipu Sultan, those days. And the Maharaja of Mysore was rather shown in a very comical fashion. And I was rather intrigued by this portrayal.
What do you mean by comical fashion?
He was shown as an obese retard who was actually dancing with the court dancer and someone who would not even bother about the affairs of state.
But you were not even a Mysorean.
I was not a Mysorean.
But why were you so much affected by the depiction of that kind?
When we speak of Mysore, it's a erstwhile state of Mysore, and Bangalore or any other city is a part of that kingdom. And somewhere the umbilical cord with the erstwhile princely state happens to remain for people in this part of
or anything against the sword of
No,
Tipu Sultan?
I have nothing against
or
Tipu
anything
Sultan.
against Sanjay Khan?
Not at all, not at all.
Or because you did not get a chance to act in those
not at all, not
episodes or something?
I was too young to act then, and maybe even now. But the general image that we have, at least in this part of Karnataka, for the Mysore Maharajas is someone who is worship worthy. And you find in old Mysore state to this day, you have pictures of the Maharaja next to gods and goddesses. So this was an image that was reinforced in my mind as a child too. And that apple cart was somehow upset by this portrayal.
Okay.
And there were a lot of protests in Bangalore and Mysore and all over the place about this particular
But you were very
serial.
young then.
Yes. And
you
so
were registering all this.
Yes, yes.
Why? Because you had planned to write a book.
Not at all. The book was completely coincidental. It was a child's curiosity into knowing, what exactly is the truth behind the
so your
falsehood.
purpose of writing was only because of that one incident.
Yes, it started off that way.
Okay, so you started collating information.
Collating information, going to numerous libraries, meeting a lot of people.
Okay,
as a
but
child.
for what purpose?
I was obsessed with that particular king and queen who were
to fight your case.
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't even have anything against Sanjay Khan or anyone who made the serial.
But why were you watching the Sword of Tipu Sultan when you were not even happy with the way they portrayed?
I watched it end to end.
Why?
In fact,
because I'm sure you were interested in Tipu Sultan.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
It was not.
But in the story, in this book, particularly you call this the untold story. It's not the chronicles or it's not the historical recollections or whatever. It's a story.
Yes.
So in this story of yours, so you're writing what you felt about Tipu Sultan or the Vodiyas or the kings of Mysore, is it?
I call it the untold story because no one's told the story before. And in popular national discourse today, we have lots of books that are written about the Mughals, about the Rajputs, the Marathas, various other dynasties.
When you call it a story, does it become a little suspicious in the sense, maybe it's not actually history?
I'm not a historian, and so the presentation of the facts are also in a way which will appeal to people of my generation.
Okay.
So I've interspersed
Have you embellished those?
Yes, I've interspersed the actual facts with a lot of
fiction,
semi-fictional account. I've put life into characters.
But you're not told that. Somewhere people have come to believe that this is a historical depiction of the whole events that led to whatever that it led to.
There's just that much one can capture in a title.
Okay.
But the very first pages. The very first, I start the book with a quote from Aristotle, which says the artistic representation of history is a more serious and scientific pursuit than the exact writing of history.
Okay.
For the art of letters goes into the heart of things, whereas the factual report merely collocates details.
Okay.
So the book starts its
credo. But you found that quote only after finishing this book, is it? Because you had to present this book in a certain way. Because you certainly knew that if at all you presented it as an historical...
I put myself in the shoes of a reader of someone of my generation,
Okay.
and what would interest and inspire him or her. So how do I reach out to people of this generation who are not particularly bothered about the rigors of historical research or how one needs to present facts?
And you can write anything that you want to.
No, it's while I say it's semi-fictional, it's all within the parameters of accuracy,
Okay.
and that is one reason I've got eminent historians like Dr. Surjanath Kamath to certify the contents. Yes.
Okay, but when you say it is historical, but you certainly collected a lot of information from everywhere, then why do you say it's an untold story? Certainly that you also got the bits of your story from elsewhere.
Yes, because for the simple reason that there is not a single book which exists today, and I can tell that with some amount of authority.
There is no need for one single book, right?
There could be a need as well. One book which gives under one roof
Okay.
all aspects of the 600-year history of the Wadiyars.
Okay,
The Wadiyars were
you've been able to put all that together.
Yes, the Wadiyars were India's longest reigning houses, and so if there's not a single book which captures the political history, the economic history, and the cultural evolution of Mysore state and the ethos of the state, there is a gap which needs to be filled.
Have you dedicated the same amount of space or the number of pages to each one of the kings?
Yes, yes.
Or
In fact,
you're able to sit and calculate it mathematically to say that, or according to the reign?
it is according to the reign and also the importance. I have actually, someone who reviewed my book, an eminent historian in Mysore, Dr. A.V. Narasimhamurthy, in the recent release of the book in Mysore, he was gracious enough to tell us that he's almost used a historical pan balance and weighed each and every king and queen and given them the importance that they deserve. Because reinventing history in a modern light is something which we are woefully lacking as Indians.
So you did not speak to any historian at all before writing this book?
No, no, in the process I did.
Okay, but did you actually collect information?
I did collect information not only from historians, from the royal family members, from the archives, from numerous inscriptions and coins and literary works.
Okay, but when you say the untold story, what do you mean by that? In the sense, as a whole it was not told before, or there are so many things in the story that was not told before,
both of it,
that you were able to discover with your own diggings and...
Yes, both of it. The history of Mysore is mired in a lot of myths and legends, and there's been...
But you've also filled in with a...
Yes, I have stated these legends because they are a part of folklore.
But sometimes almost like, they are true. Like you mentioned, 10,000 people were converted, as if somebody actually gave you the account.
For all my accounts, I have chronicled
exactly 10,000 people. I'm sure it was not done that way.
I mean, here we're getting into specifics, but then when I'm talking of these myths and legends...
No, you could have actually, the question would be that, perhaps when you made this effort to write such a big book, you could have been a little more careful.
I've tried to use my discretion in almost every page of the book. As I said, the history itself is mired in a lot of myths and legends. While I've stated these myths because they're so much a part of folklore and entrenched in people's beliefs, casting a cold and rational look at them and also giving the viewpoint of someone, a young man of India today.
But,
that has been
but aren't you trying to romanticize? Because
not at all.
You're somewhere trying to sell this story. Because you know that a story like this would sell. Because particularly Mysoreans are waiting for somebody to make them feel proud.
There's nothing wrong in feeling that way, that you want to sell the story.
But are you actually pandering to such a desire?
It's more than a desire to, with altruistic motives or whatever they are. I would want to recount this story. We recently had the release function in Mysore as well, and it was in the Jagan Mohan Palace, and just outside when I just walked out, the gardener of the Jagan Mohan Palace, he actually caught my hands and wept. And it was a very humbling...
He read the English book?
No, there was an audiovisual presentation that was done of the contents of the book, and he vaguely understood what the book sought to convey, and he actually caught my hand and wept and said, this was long overdue, we wanted a book, I'm a illiterate man, I can't read English, but I can manage in Kannada.
But is it actually true that a lot of people have written these kind of books in Kannada? But maybe it's for the first time that somebody has written it in English.
Even in a Kannada version, it's all in bits and pieces. It's never end to end.
And everybody has been speaking about Professor P.V. Nanjaraj Aras's book.
Yes.
So have you read that book too?
Yes, Professor Nanjaraj Aras. Yes, I do. Professor Nanjaraj Aras is a good friend and a well-wisher, and he actually blessed me at the...
you had a lot of blessings before writing this book, didn't you?
Yes.
From the royal family too, whatever that's, that's remaining today.
True.
including Srikanthadatta Narasimharaja Vodaya.
And also his sister, Princess Meenakshi Devi.
But are you a royalist?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
But this looks a little like you're defending the royal family.
Not at all.
Because, you know, I mean, there was nobody actually talking so much in favor, particularly in the present day scenario, that many people think that Srikanthadatta himself doesn't have such a good PR. So somebody needed to build a good, you know, PR.
If you're writing about a particular topic, it need not always necessarily be that you're writing in favor of it. I may have analyzed it with a dispassionate look because I'm not a royalist. I don't have agendas or biases to follow. It's not a royal family commissioned project. It's a completely self-driven.
Okay. But when you write about, you know, the Queen having sold her jewels to fund the seed capital that was required by a project, aren't you actually trying to talk about something that you have no proof of?
There are proofs for everything that I've stated.
Okay.
I can
what
claim.
Proof do you have for that?
These are from some of the documents of the time of the royal family. Now we can always discount whether these were manipulated or manufactured.
Okay.
But those are the perils of documentation of any sort of history.
Okay. You had, what do you say, the support of the royal family. Let's take it that way. But still, when you're talking about Alamelamma's curse,
yes,
you are not. What do you say? Subscribing to the opinion or the belief of even the royal family, because you must have heard Srikanthadatta himself about 2 years ago saying that the curse is wearing off and he's feeling more comfortable about it now. So aren't you, if at all you're actually going by the facts, even depending it on authentic sources,
like
you're actually putting in your own theory somewhere in between, and in some places you're calling it authentic, coming from sources that are
history to me is both an art and a science. So these aspects that you're talking about,
more liberty with the art.
These things of curses and myths they come under the art category. And when I talk of authenticity, it is more to do with the science of documenting history, collecting information. But I don't subscribe to the views of the curse and so on. But as I said, these are part of public belief. People so strongly believe in them, including members of the royal family. But since I'm not a spokesperson of the royal family, I need not have to subscribe to everything that they believe in.
Okay, but do you actually think that these myths and curses and all these legends were part of the very scheme of things in Mysore to ensure that the state was run properly? So when you're chronicling it, you need to be careful in even incorporating those things as facts in the book, because they were part of the existence, they were part of the system.
That's precisely the reason why I've stated these stories.
And then looking at it as just as an imaginary part of the whole story.
I've been very careful in that portrayal where I've said it is my interpretation. To me, history is the interpretation of the person who writes it. There is nothing which is, what people did in the past was never preserved in amber and it's not immutable. Every generation, I think, looks back in the past and sees, interprets it in its own way and tries to illuminate both the present and the future.
Okay.
That's
what kind of criticism has come your way after writing this book, or once the book was published? Particularly something that you were to take note of.
Yes, a lot of people have dubbed me as a royalist. As they just assume.
Most people also thought that maybe this book was commissioned by the royal family.
Exactly, because I have the Princess Meenakshi Devi writing a foreword as well, along with Dr. Suryanath Kamath and Mr. Kumaraswamy, the former Chief Minister. But it is not that. I would only wish people actually read the book and see that.
It is very expensive. It is 1,500 rupees.
Yeah, it's
so you cannot expect everybody to buy it till it hits the palace from Europe. Sometimes they're not even impressed, and we coming from Mysore, or being emotionally attached to Mysore, feel that it's all great. But are you actually looking at everything with that kind of a view, that a frog in the well kind of a situation?
Not at all, and I don't think splendor is such a bad word.
No, I'm not talking about just the splendor, like to think that this story needs to be told to the whole world.
Yes, I do think there is a need to tell the story to the whole world, because Mysore had a very distinctive and unique role to play in history, and which sadly has not been chronicled by anybody. And it's high time somebody spoke about it with a modern perspective, and that's exactly what I've done.
A kingdom that did not want even to accede to the Indian Union.
but Mysore was, if you would remember, the first kingdom to actually fall into the...
Because did not actually have an option.
None of the other princely states
Why
had.
do actually people somewhere think that the Mysore kings were weak too, to an extent, and really gave up a lot of things, particularly their own freedom?
There is a certain...
Without a fight.
As I said, it's very difficult to judge characters of the past by circumstances and, you know, yardsticks we set today. If we go back 200 years in the past, 1799 is when this incident you talk about, when Tipu Sultan died, and the lingering royal family, what option did they have? Did they have the option of dying in anonymity, or did they have the option of joining the British and
continuing to rule the people?
Correct.
By making a pact.
But if you recall, Tipu Sultan also aligned with the French. So if not for the Wadiyars, Tipu would have continued with French aid, and I don't know how different a French ruled Mysore would be from a British ruled Mysore, because French too had colonial designs, as was shown in the Carnatic Wars. So these are product of circumstances, and sitting now it's very easy to comment on they should have done this and that, but they were a product of their times, and they did what they felt was the best they could then. And
wasn't this a big task on your hands when you decided to write this book?
It was an onerous responsibility.
Were you prepared for it? Because you were writing something that is historical.
Yeah.
And you very well knew that you were not a historian.
Yeah, that was both an advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage was, you know, the credibility that the book and its contents would have in the eyes of scholars and rationalists.
You knew that this book would be questioned.
Yes, yes, I'm prepared for that. And if people are going to question me on the historical authenticity...
And today you can actually only defend on the basis of the information that you gathered, to say that, look, I have proof for this, I have proof for that, which itself could be very debatable. Because like you yourself say, it's also an art as well as science.
That's true of any historical chronicle, be it a movie, be it a book. People can always...
Wouldn't it have been easier for you to say that this is a semi-fictional, what do you say, narrative?
Because it's not that. It's just interspersed with stories which would catch
because you know your hard work, you know the kind of work that you've done to put this book together.
Yes, yes.